My name is Andrea. My company is called Thrive, and Ingrid and I started Thrive in 2003, and all we've done for 20-something years is accreditation work. We started in the Seta system with grants and levies and branched into accreditation. And now we've done more than 1,200 companies through accreditations. We're very gray under all this dye. And we're super excited about the shift to QCTO, the change and the opportunities that that's bringing us. And we've really moved the accreditation work that we used to do at the Setas to the QCTO. And we are delighted to share that information with you today, to bring you up to speed, to answer your questions as best we can. And I'm really going to pack in the information today. So I hope you had your pop this morning and a cup of coffee nearby, because I really would love to share as much as I can with you over the course of certainly the next half an hour. So the way we're going to do this, folks, is I've read all your questions and all your specifics. I recapped that this morning, and I'm going to do a fairly kind of generic webinar to start with about how this all works, including the old Seta system and the new QCTO system. I'm going to do that over the first half an hour, and then I thought we could leave this a little bit more flexible and answer some specific questions that you have. I did find that a lot of the questions were very similar. So if your questions relate to assessors, moderators, or how long does it take, or how do I know what resources we need, and these kinds of things, please hang 10. I'm definitely going to answer those. They're really big questions. If you had something a little more specific, like there was a very specific learnership question, I'm going to try and get to those. If I don't, I will absolutely get back to you via email over the next few days, and I'll try to answer those questions. Also on my team today, I've got a couple of sidekicks lurking in the lecture hall as well. We have Isel and Belinda here today, who are both accreditation consultants working on projects. Now, they have much more kind of hands-on experience at the coalface than I do. So they're going to be monitoring the chat box and responding to questions as they come up. So please feel free, write your questions in. We will get to you as soon as we can. And I've got Ingrid, who's, of course, the hostess with the mostess. And she's my bestie and business partner, and she is here to make sure everyone has a great time and is comfortable. Okay. One last comment before I jump in. Folks, as the QCTO themselves say, we are building this as we are flying it. There are a lot of changes and a lot of things that are getting smoothed out, clarified, fixed, improved on as we go forward. So the information I share with you today is the very best of the information that I have to share with you. Please know that there are a lot of very specific things that happen in the specific program that you are applying for. And please also know that this is a very moving and changing environment, and what is correct this week may be different next week. So please take all of that into context when absorbing the answers and the information we share today. We had 3 site visits yesterday alone, and the information and feedback from those site visits every day feeds into the information we have. And so we have what we feel is the most up-to-date, the most relevant info, but this changes. Okay, enough waffling, right? Enough waffling. Everybody comfy, let's go. Right. So we had the accreditation system that we all know for the last 20-something years at the Setas. There are 21 different Setas, and they would accredit us depending on the specific industry that they were quality assuring. The Setas, as we know them, are going to continue. There's a lot of rumors that the Setas are disappearing. The Setas are gazetted until 2030, so they're not going anywhere. However, the accreditation application at the Seta is no more. We no more go towards a Seta for an accreditation. Now, one of the key reasons for this is that The Seta is used to quality assure unit standards. So unit standards are like modules, right? Modules on the NQF. And they add up to what we now call legacy qualifications, Seta qualifications, okay? Now, there are 11,400 and something unit standards, and every single one of them expired in June 2023. They're all expired. All Seta legacy qualifications, all unit standards are no more available for us to accredit against. So what does this mean for us? This means if you are a currently accredited provider, in other words, you have a Seta accreditation from before that is still valid, you are entitled to run those programs until the last date for enrollment, which is June 2024. So they expired June 2023, but you can enroll learners if you are currently accredited at a Seta until June 2024. Any learner that's enrolled with you at that point, you can exit learners until June 2027. So it's true that we will see Seta accredited providers amongst us advertising, offering training. My own company is doing it. We're offering unit standard based training until June next year, and we will continue to do that, and it's legitimate and it's perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine. But as a new accreditation application, let's say you're a new provider coming into the market, or let's say you're a provider in the Seta space, and you are looking to be accredited in the longer term, then what you have to do is apply at the QCTO, not the Setas, at the QCTO, which stands for Quality Council for Trade and Occupations, QCTO. There were a couple of questions around this. Let me highlight. You cannot shift your accreditation from Seta to QCTO. You cannot take your programs here at the Seta and simply move them across to QCTO. You cannot do that. What we have to do is, and it's a great opportunity actually, you have to stop, have a look at what you offer, have a look at what's working for you, what's not working for you, maybe markets you'd like to tap into or changes you'd like to make, regroup a little bit on your strategy, and then go to the QCTO website and search what they have available that suits us. There are no unit standards at the QCTO. That system is finishing. What they have available for us at the QCTO is either full qualifications, so those are full year-long, at least, qualifications. They're usually 120 plus credits. It is true that there are some older qualifications less than that, but those will be phased out over time. So full year-long qualifications or more, 120 plus credits, we usually call them occupational certificates. Occupational certificates. Or they have what's called a part qualification, which looks a little bit like the old learning programs we used to see in the Seta qualifications. It's a chunk of the qualification, usually looks like 60, 90 credits. Not all qualifications have it, some of them do, and you can indeed accredit yourself for a part qualification if it's separately registered on the NQF. Or, and I know many of you are shorter program providers, not necessarily looking for the larger programs. If you're looking for smaller programs, the other only option that QCTO has for us is what we call skills programs. Skills programs. Now, these are shorter. They are 8+ credits. Some of them, quite a lot of them are quite big. They're kind of 60 credits, 30 credits, 90 credits. They are quite long. And you'll see that they're very job focused. They're focused on doing a particular skill, for example, barber or bicycle repairer or cell phone repairer or handy person, those kinds of things. Those are the only options we have available. Now, this I know is a challenge for many of you. And in fact, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a little poll that you get to participate. You get to participate in. I'm going to put up this poll. This is for those of you that have looked at the QCTO, that have seen if there is something there available to you. I'd love you to vote if you can. If you haven't yet looked at QCTO, don't worry too much about that. I'm sure over time you'll go and have a look. But I'm going to take a minute to check through the chat box, and please do vote on the poll. Okay. So the question I asked in the poll is, does QCTO have suitable skills programs and qualifications for you? And it's interesting, in the room we have about a half-half. So half said yes, 48% said yes, and 50 votes are coming in. Oh, it's very close, 49-51. So about half of you have what you're looking for at the QCTO. It's literally 50-49. Okay, I'm going to end the poll there. Okay, interesting. That's actually better than I thought. That's really great. So that means that half of you have found what you're looking for and half of you haven't. Here's my advice to those of you that are struggling, and then we'll get on to those of you that have found what you're looking for. If you are not finding what you're looking for at the QCTO, here are a couple of things you can do. Firstly, get in touch with the Seta that's involved in the rework of the qualifications and the skills programs. There are likely working groups of professionals, professional bodies, skills development providers, people in the field that are busy working on this. And if you've got some time, feel free to jump in and be a part of that process. Add some value to the process and hopefully bring those programs across from the Seta system to the QCTO system sooner rather than later. Note that none of these skills programs are tied to a particular provider. So this will be a public service and anybody can then accredit against them. So get involved, see where they are in the process and see if you can do something to help. If you can't be part of the working group, then certainly have a look for the public comment. So qualifications go out on public comment. And you can participate and give feedback. We have in writing reassurance from the QCTO that every person that submits public comment gets entertained, they get to go through it and they take it into consideration. So I feel encouraged by that. So you can get involved that way. The next thing that you can do is I'd love you to think as broadly as possible. Is there something at the QCTO that could work for you for now, knowing that this is not the perfect skills program for us? This is not exactly right, but maybe if we did it, we could open a new kind of a diversification, do something a little bit different, and potentially add some value. Maybe it can be something that you hadn't thought of before. If there is something there that works for you, that will give you a return on investment, then it's a really good idea to get your foot in the door at the QCTO at this stage. We need to start that process. There are thousands of providers that need to apply. The backlogs are significant, or they will be significant. So please consider getting your foot in the door now. And then, of course, the third option is you can wait for the skills program to become available or the qualification to become available, and then you can apply at that time. There was a few specific questions around first aid. So on first aid, I keep a very close eye on that. I have a lot of providers who want first aid. First aid, as of yesterday, was not listed as a skills program at the QCTO. I understand from Sayosh, from Graham, that they are coming out. They will be out soon, hopefully in September. If they get approval from QCTO, then they should be available imminently. So I keep a very close eye on that. One last thing on this topic before we move on to the actual application. If this is the kind of information that's useful to you, if you'd like sort of just in time, week on week, things that I learn, things that are evolving, please consider signing up for our Friday tidbit. I call it a tidbit. It's a very casual email I send out on a Friday of what my team and I have learned from the week. And it's kind of the school of hard knocks, if you like, as it evolves. And certainly when those kinds of skills programs come out, it's the kind of mail that I will send. So feel free to sign up or drop me a mail and I'll sign you up for that. It's andrea@thrive.co.za. Okay, so once you've decided on what you're going to apply for, a lot of the detail of how this then works from that point is found in the curriculum documents of what you're applying for, both the curriculum document as well as the assessment specification document of the full qualifications. I cannot stress this enough. There isn't blanket answers to a lot of your questions for all of the curriculums. Each curriculum deals with the compliance and what is required quite differently. The way I see it is before we had different Setas with different industries with different requirements. Now we only have one. We have just the QCTO, and the differences come in the curriculum and assessment specification documents of what you're applying for. So once you've decided what you're applying for, please print it out or keep it on your desktop. I like to print it out. I have it on my desk and I make notes and I put things in because you're going to need to get to know that curriculum really, really well. Really, really well. The first thing in your process is, of course, to realign your QMS, your quality management system. Now, you're still going to need one of those. And if you're a previous provider, a lot of the principles and the ideas that you had before can certainly move across to the new QCTO. Of course, you will need to change quite a lot related to unit standards and Setas and the actual curriculum documents. So please go through that. Again, it's a nice opportunity to give it a bit of a refresh and rework your QMS for the QCTO. Next thing you're going to need to consider is who are my human resources. Now, assessors and moderators, for all of you that are asking me about that, this is your gap. What is happening to our assessors and moderators in the new QCTO system? Here's your answer. In almost all cases, there isn't a thing anymore of being a registered assessor and a registered moderator. That is a thing of the past. That's a thing for Seta and unit standards. It's not, in almost all cases, for the QCTO. What your people, your human resources need to have in order to deliver the program is in the curriculum document of what you're applying for. I'm going to say that again. The details, the qualification, the experience of what your facilitator assessor needs to have is in the curriculum document of what you're applying for. Meaning that it varies. I think that's why there's so much confusion. It varies from qualification to qualification, to skills program to skills program. It varies. Normally it says all the usual things around having a qualification in the area that you're delivering, having workplace and actual experience. We find at the QCTO the emphasis is very much on using professionals, people practicing in that particular area rather than just a plain professional facilitator. And so the person facilitating your program is also going to be the person assessing the learners. We no longer separate out those roles. In fact, in many cases, we call them subject matter experts. Your facilitator assessor is one person, and this person, folks, needs to be someone that you have contracted, someone that you know, someone who knows your materials, who knows your rollout. When we apply for accreditation at QCTO, we no longer do this kind of linkage thing that we used to have with registered assessors and moderators, because the QCTO wants to speak to your facilitator at the site visit. They want to meet them and talk to them about the rollout and the curriculum and how it's going to be done and how this is going to work. And so recruiting that person at the point where you're applying is really key. Is really key. Your assessor and facilitator is the same person. How you recruit and performance manage this person is defined in your QMS. So you as the provider get to choose, is this person indeed suitable to deliver this program? And then you can performance manage them with contracts and that sort of thing. And all of this needs to be in place when we apply to the QCTO. Now, I said in most cases, it does sometimes happen. Very few, but it does happen. In some curriculum documents, it says your facilitator assessor needs to be registered at the assessment quality partner or somewhere at a professional body. I know it happens in the real estate industries. I saw some tech ones like this. You may have an anomaly. So again, refer to your curriculum document, and you may be one of the kind of 5% that has some other kind of registration in order to be an assessor in that particular industry. I'm going to move on to moderators now. The QCTO is relatively silent on moderators. But I think we can all agree that it would be remiss of us as good quality providers to not have a moderation check on our assessments. This is international best practice. It's what people do worldwide. Why would we not have moderators checking for consistency, reliability, validity? We would, right? We would. So us as providers, again, we get to take more responsibility for our own quality mechanisms. And certainly for us and for anyone we advise, moderation is absolutely something that's required, that you should have a moderator and a quality assurer on your team that is going to check your assessments for NQF principles. But no registered moderators. It's really very much on you. I think that covers most of the questions on assessors and moderators. If it doesn't, feel free to pop something into the chat. When we apply, we also need to talk about your training materials. Okay, I had a question yesterday from a provider. Can I use my Seta materials at the QCTO? And as with most questions, I'm going to put it back onto you as providers. I don't know. Can you? Have you unpacked the curriculum documents and compared it to your materials? How much alignment do you have, given that your materials are based on unit standards? Perhaps the content is similar, but the structures of the knowledge modules, the practical modules, the workplace experience will all be a little bit different. So again, you're answering your own questions, right? You're answering your own questions. Have a look. If you can justify it, if you feel that your materials cover all those areas, you can do your alignment, then I think you're good to go. You're good to go. But they do need some rework. They do need bringing up to date. And they do need to align to concepts like knowledge modules, practical modules, workplace experience. I'm going to say a couple of lines on off-the-shelf materials too. There are a lot of people selling off-the-shelf materials for very cheap. And I've been interviewing quite a few of these folks over the last few weeks. And I can tell you that I am in despair of how many of the samples and the presentations that were shown to me still refer to unit standards, don't have any practical activities, case studies, application. So please be very, very, very careful. If you are going to buy off-the-shelf materials, please ask the person providing them to you to present those to you on the screen. There's no risk to them. And do a sample check of the alignment to the materials. Check that what you need is actually in those materials before you buy. Please be very careful, okay? We have some content as well. Of course, we're super proud of it. I'm not yet to advertise, but we do have some stuff that works very, very well. If you're interested in that, feel free to drop me a mail and I'd be happy to share that with you. We got some amazing feedback yesterday. An evaluator said to us that they had never seen materials like this before. And we were super excited that we're not only on the right track with the materials, but actually providing SDPs with content that they can use. And I'll tell you why, which brings me to my next big point about the QCTO. For me, the biggest difference between CETAs and QCTO lies in how we handle full qualifications. So in the past, as a provider, you would do the training, the formative assessment, summative assessment, and you would declare the learner competent after some kind of FISA, and you would be able to certificate your learner. This is quite different at the QCTO. In the case of full qualifications, not skills programs, full qualifications, you will do the training, the assessment, the practicals, monitor the workplace, put a learner through a whole learning journey over a year or more. At that point where they've completed everything and are competent, you as the provider will provide a thing called a statement of results. Folks, not to be confused with the NQF statement of results, which was also called that. This statement of results is from you as the provider that says, so-and-so has completed the following things, is competent, blah, blah, blah. I believe they are ready to sit their final exam. We call that final exam External Integrated Supervised Assessment, ISA. Now, to me, this smells a bit like matric, right? You go to school, you do all your things, you do your mock, and then you sit an Umalusi exam. Now, this is a very similar system. But I think that the reason it's going to change the landscape is that for us as providers, in the future, we're going to be judged by how many of our learners actually got through the ISA. Just like we go to different schools and we ask for our kids, what is your matric pass rates? What are your marks? How did it go? In the future, employers and learners will ask us, how many of your learners actually get through the ISA? And so for us as providers, it's putting more pressure on us to ensure that our learners have a really amazing, well-supported, well-curated experience, a learning experience, so that they can actually get through the external exam. I'm quite excited about that because I think it puts the emphasis back where it should be, which is on the learners. Now, this ISA that I've just described to you will be implemented by assessment centers that are accredited by the QCTO and the Assessment Qualification Partner, the AQP. Now, the AQP in many cases is the Seta. So we're back to Setas who will accredit with QCTO assessment centers who will implement the ISAs. There will be a database of ISAs available, and on that day, you will get one of a range of different ISAs. And so the learners will sit their exams or do their practicals if it's a practical qualification, and then will be awarded their certification. Remember, this is only full qualifications and part qualifications. In the case of skills programs, it's different. They don't have an ISA. They have a thing called a FISA, Final Integrated Supervised Assessment, and that is implemented by you as the provider. It's implemented by you. So you can do the training, the assessments, blah, 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 do the FISA and certificate the learner in the case of skills programs. So when you're doing your application, you've got your training material sorted, you've got your human resources sorted. You need some statutory or company requirements. Now, one of the things you need are internal systems to manage all of these learners going through your training. You need some solid internal systems like the learner management system you're experiencing today. We're super excited. This is the Epitech Thrive LMS. It's built by South Africans for QCTO skills program, SDP, skills development providers. It's built for you, and it's costed in rands. It's not costed in dollars. And it's fully integrated. So the software you see today for the live classrooms, not only in a lecture hall format like you're experiencing, but also classroom or one-on-one. And it's got e-assessment, cloud. It's got a marketplace you can sell to the public, and it's got analytics in the back. I see some of you are keen on a demo, and we will arrange that. But don't have to have this one. What you do have to have is an internal system that is safe, POPI compliant, confidential, and backed up so that you can keep your learner data over a period of time. Health and safety. Now, this came up in some of the questions as well. Two different scenarios. Let's first go with those that have a full-on venue, right? You've got a whole venue, you bring learners on board, they actually do the training with you. That venue needs to, of course, be health and safety compliant completely. You need a SAOSH registered or a professionally registered OHS practitioner who comes in, does the report, does the certificate, and approves your venue. If you have more than one venue, let's say you've got a venue in Durban, you've got a venue in Joburg, both of those venues have to apply for accreditation. You cannot have one venue and then another one without the other one also applying for accreditation. And of course, health and safety in both of those scenarios. The other scenario that we work with quite a lot is related to a small home office, right? Something like where I'm working today. You work very virtual, maybe do a lot of virtual training. you only have a home office or very small office, that's perfectly fine. You will need health and safety compliance of a small office. Okay. I have a guy who does a really nice small package for skills development providers for QCTO compliance. Feel free to drop me a mail if you'd like his details. He does it virtually, so it keeps the costs down, and it works really well. Again, my email address, andrea@thrive.co.za. So you will need health and safety compliance. Yesterday, again, we had this feedback from QCTO that even if you are a very small office, you still need a first aider and you still need a SHE-Rep. And the reason for that, I didn't understand the reason for that. If you're 2 or 3 people, why do you need a first aider, right? But I get it. Like if you've got a classroom of 20 people, you're no longer 2 people. You're a classroom of 20 people. And so again, this is now required. It is a specific requirement that comes up differently with different evaluators. I'm sure that we will get some clarity over time, but please do carefully consider that. If you use hotels or conference centers, they will cover you for public liability and those kinds of things anyway. And if you use a client site, then you need to engage with them around health and safety too. Okay, so please consider that carefully. And then all your usual things, right? You need some SIPC documents, your tax clearance, financial statements if it's a going concern, or a business plan if it's new. And folks, you put all of this stuff together. You do your first application to the QCTO. You send it in just with a few documents saying what you're accrediting for. Once they're happy with that, they allocate you to an evaluator, and you're invited to a cloud space where you will do all your document uploads in the cloud space. Okay. Once you've done that, please only do that once you're ready for a site visit, because sometimes it happens quite quickly. But the QCTO have 90 working days from the time that you upload everything to the time that you are accredited. So they have a period of time to do that. They will then have a look at what you've sent. If they're comfortable with that, they will ask you to do a self-evaluation form, which goes through exactly, almost like a mock visit, exactly what they're going to check at their visit. And then they're going to come on a site visit to see you. They will go through everything. If it's a full qualification, you'll have a QCTO person as well as a subject matter expert, potentially a Seta person or a contracted evaluator. They will go through your documents, and almost always at that point, once you've done all of that, you will then be accredited. You will be accredited. At that point for 5 years. For 5 years, 90 days to that point, and then you will be accredited for 5 years. Every time you want to add an additional program, it's not an extension of scope. It's like it's a brand new application. The cycle I just described to you, you've got to start again and do that. But the second time is never so bad because you've got the QMS and you've got some documents. So it's really not as bad the second time around. The first one is the biggest application, and then it gets a little easier. And that's pretty much my story. I'm going to have a look in the chat box for some questions. We're at 35 minutes in. That is the story, start to finish. I've covered everything I can see over there. I'm going to have a look in the chat box. Please feel free to put your questions there if I haven't answered them, and I'll pick them up now. I'm also going to create a new poll for us. How are you guys feeling about QCTO? There's some emojis down there at the bottom. You want to use some emojis? Be kind, be kind, be kind.